Ba-ba-da-ba. All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Sabbath. Uh, Want to do a little Feast of Tabernacles study today. This is my first time celebrating it, and I'm on the, started Wednesday, so 1, 2, 3, 4th day. So, just wanted to share some scriptures for the Feast of Tabernacles. So here is the book of Jubilees, chapter 16. And we've got, here we go, next page. Verse 10, And this month Abraham moved from Hebron and departed and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur in the mountains of Gerar. And in the middle of the 5th month he moved from thence and dwelt at the well of the oath. And in the middle of the 6th month Yahuwah visited Sarah and did unto her as he had spoken, and she conceived. I'm Lee, by the way. And she bare a son in the 3rd month, in the middle of the month, at the time of which Yahuwah had spoken to Abraham on the festival of the first fruits of the harvest, Isaac was born. So the son of Abraham, Isaac, was born on the festival of the covenant renewal, and first fruits, which is Messiah, first fruit. So he was a foreshadow of the Messiah being born in the middle of the 6th month. And the month in the Hebrew year starts around March, April. So you're looking at like April, May, June. That's 3rd. No, he spoke to her in the middle of the 6th month. The son was born in the middle of the 3rd month. So about June, 3rd month, middle of the month. Let's see. And Abraham circumcised his son on the 8th day. He was the first that was circumcised according to the covenant which is ordained forever. In the 6th year of the 4th week we came to Abraham to the well of the oath, and we appeared unto him as we told Sarah that we should return to her, and she would have conceived a son. And we returned in the 7th month and found Sarah with child before us, and we blessed him, and we announced to him all the things which had been decreed concerning him, that he should not die till he beget 6 sons more, and should see them before he died, and that in Isaac should his name and seed be called, and that all the seed of his sons should be Gentiles and reckoned with the Gentiles, but the sons of Isaac should become a holy seed and should be reckoned among the Gentiles, should not be reckoned among the Gentiles. For he should become the portion of the Most High, and all his seed have fallen into the possession of Yahuwah, and that it should be unto Yahuwah a people for his possession above all nations, and that it should become a kingdom and priest and a holy nation. So if you look at I have to go back through it, a lot of this stuff, because some people might not know it. So, let's see, Peter, where you at? Priesthood, nation. Should be in Peter. Yeah, 1 Peter 2:9. But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, and holy nation, a peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Kingdom, a priest, and holy nation. And we went our way, and we announced to Sarah all that we had told him, and they both rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And he built there an altar to Yahuwah, who had delivered him, and who was making him rejoice in the land of his sojourning. And he celebrated a festival of joy in this month, 7 days, near the altar which he built at the well of the oath. And he built booths for himself and for his servants on this festival, and he was the first to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles on the earth. So Abraham's the first. And during these 7 days he brought each day to the altar a burnt offering to Yahuwah, 2 oxen, 2 rams, 7 sheep, 1 he-goat, for a sin offering, that he might atone thereby for himself and for his seed. So, one thing I noticed the other day, I didn't make a fire on the Sabbath because I didn't want to break Sabbath. But here, Abraham, he had to make a fire if he's going to sacrifice on the altar. And the first day is the Sabbath, and the seventh, or the last day is the Sabbath also. So he made a fire. Did he break Sabbath? No. And as a thank offering, 7 rams, 7 kids, 7 sheep, and 7 he-goats, and their fruit offerings and their drink offerings. And he burnt all the fat thereof on the altar, a chosen offering unto Yahuwah for a sweet-smelling savor. Now Abraham probably had everything prepared before the feast began. He probably had his wood, his sacrifices. He had everything prepared. In the morning and evening he burnt fragrant substances, frankincense and galbanum, and stacked and nard and myrrh and spice. You gotta have fire to burn something, right? Spice costume. All these 7 he offered crushed, mixed together in equal parts and pure. And he celebrated this feast during 7 days, rejoicing with all his heart and with all his soul, he and all those who were in his house. And there was no stranger with him, nor any that was uncircumcised. And a lot of people say, "Oh, it's done away in the New Testament because of Paul." Well, 2 Peter, the chapter 3, the end of it, warns you not to twist Paul into lawlessness. Profiteth. Yeah. So Romans 2:25, for circumcision verily profiteth. What's profit mean? It's good. To lose would be bad. Verily profiteth if thou keep the law. So if you keep the law, circumcision is good. But if thou be a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. That's the reason he was rebuking the Pharisees and everybody. They were breaking the law and doing circumcision. And Romans 2:25, if you go to, let's see here, pull this up. There's a lot of false doctrines out there, and just, if you don't understand something, just stay away from it. Better not to lie. So, verily profiteth. G56:26. Ophelio, to assist, to be useful or advantageous. See? It's useful. So if you keep the law, doing circumcision is useful. Paul said it. It's not my words. That's his word. But if you're a breaker of the law, don't even worry about it. And also, you'll see this here. Is any man called being circumcised? Let him not be uncircumcised. Is any man called in uncircumcision? Let him not be circumcised. You can say, okay, he's saying not to circumcise. Well, and the other party said that it was profited. It was good. So what's he saying? A lot of people latch on to, okay, look, I don't have to be circumcised. Yay for me. See? We do what makes us feel better a lot of the times, and what's easier for us than doing what's not. 9 times out of 10, well, majority 10 times out of 10, that's what we do as people. We'll seize on that and say, look, I don't have to do it. Okay. And then teach everybody else, okay, you ain't got to do it. When he says clearly over here that it profits, it's good. And he circumcised Timothy. I'm not sure where that's at. It says because of the circumcision he circumcised Timothy, but if Timothy didn't need to be circumcised for the faith, why is he being circumcised? And he blessed his Creator who had created him in his generation, for he had created him according to his good pleasure, for he knew and perceived that from him would arise the plan of righteousness for the eternal generations, and from him a holy seed, so that it should become like him who had made all things. This is the prophecy of the Messiah, the Holy Seed. Go to John. So in the beginning, book of John, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Yahuwah, and the Word was Elohim. The same was in the beginning with Yahuwah. All things were made by him. We know who the Word is. All things were made by him, the creator of all things. Be like him who had made all things. There's only one, and the Father and the Son, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The law is also light too, right? And he blessed and rejoiced, and he called the name of the festival of Yahuwah. So he didn't call it the Feast of Tabernacles, he called it the festival of Yahuwah. A joy acceptable to the Most High Yahuwah, and we blessed him forever, and all his seed after him throughout all the generations of the earth, because he celebrated this festival in its season, according to the testimony of the heavenly tables. For this reason it is ordained on the heavenly tables concerning Israel, this ordained on the heavenly tables, that they should celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. Okay, now it's called the Feast of Tabernacles. 7 days with joy in the 7th month, acceptable before Yahuwah, a statute forever throughout their generations every year. And to this there is no limit of days, so is forever. There's no limit on it. For it is ordained forever regarding Israel that they should celebrate it and dwell in booths and set wreaths upon their heads. I don't have a wreath. I might need to get some. And take leafy boughs and willows from the brook. I don't have a brook right here. And Abraham took branches of palm trees. That's very interesting. Fruit of goodly trees, and every day going round the altar with the branches 7 times. A day in the morning, he praised and gave thanks to his Elohim for all things in joy. So our sacrifice is the Messiah, so we don't have to do the sacrifices. But you'll see he took palm branches, and this is very interesting. So you see the 144,000 in Revelation 7. They're sealed. Then, after this, I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man can number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. That's amazing. And cried with a loud voice. You see, Abraham had branches of palm trees, Feast of Tabernacles, palms in their hands, Feast of Tabernacles, and cried with a loud voice, saying, Salvation to our Yahuwah, which sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb, who is that? Yahusha, his son. And all the angels stood round about the throne, and about the elders and the 4 beasts, and fell before the throne on their faces, and worshipped Yahuwah, saying, Amen. Or so be it. Blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be unto our Elohim forever and ever. Amen. So be it. So it's very, very interesting. The beginning, the book of Jubilees, the account of creation given by the angel, Revelation. The end, palms in their hands. These are, let's see, Leviticus 23. So this manuscript you shall take on the first day of the fruit of goodly trees, branches of palm trees, and boughs of thick trees, and willows of the brook. You shall rejoice before Yahuwah your Elohim 7 days. There's the palm trees. We know what that is. That's from scroll 4Q24, Leviticus B. And so Leviticus 23. Let's go to Samaritan Pentateuch, which a lot of the Dead Sea Scrolls line up with what they've preserved in here, opposing the Masoretic text. So I like to use it. and the Septuagint. I do use the Masoretic too. So, and Yahuwah spake, verse 33, spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, The 15th day of the 7th month shall be the feast of tabernacles for 7 days unto Yahuwah. On the first day shall be a holy convocation. So the 15th day, the day starts in the morning. That'll start the Feast of Tabernacles. You shall do no servile work therein. 7 days you shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahuwah. On the 8th day shall be an holy convocation unto you. And you shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahuwah. So celebrate Feast of Tabernacles 7 days, and then the 8th day have a holy convocation. It is a solemn assembly. You shall do no servile work therein. These are the feast of Yahuwah, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, to offer an offering made by fire unto Yahuwah, a burnt offering and a meat offering, a sacrifice, that's bread, meat, bread offering, sacrifice, drink offerings, everything upon this his day, beside the Sabbaths of Yahuwah, and besides all your gifts, and besides all your vows, and besides all your freewill offerings which you give unto Yahuwah. Also in the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered in the fruit of the land, you shall keep a feast unto Yahuwah 7 days. On the first day shall be a Sabbath, and on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath. And you shall take you on the first day the boughs of the goodly trees, the branches of palm trees, and the boughs of thick trees and willows of the brook. And you shall rejoice before Yahuwah your Elohim 7 days. And you shall keep it a feast unto Yahuwah 7 days in a year. It shall be a statute forever in your generations. You shall celebrate it in the 7th month. You shall dwell in booths 7 days. All that are Israelites shall dwell in booths, that your generations may know that I made the children of Israel to dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. And Moses declared unto the children of Israel the feast of Yahuwah. And Jubilees also, you see the 8th day they added there in Leviticus 23. And I believe it's in the book of Jubilees. It tells you where that 8th day came from. Yeah, okay, Jubilees 32. The Sefer is not a perfect translation by any means, but if you get the Sefer app, you can search removed books, which is very useful. Let's see if I can get this up here. Say just punch in a keyword, pick the book, and it'll help you find some of the stuff. Happy Sabbath, Shelby. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. So Jubilees 23, or 32, excuse me. So I don't use the Sefer a whole lot, but I do use it occasionally. I like how they added the Father's name back in there. It's a good thing. It's not perfect by any means, but so Jubilees, that's 22. Where's 32 at? Why do they have to do Roman numerals? Just do regular numbers so I know where I'm at. Jubilees 32. Let's see. And he abode that night at Bethel, and Levi dreamed that he had been ordained and made him the priest of the Most High Yahuwah, him and his sons forever. And he awoke from his sleep and blessed Yahuwah. So the 7th month is a very special month, you'll see. So we got, and on the 15th of this month he brought to the altar 14 oxen from amongst the cattle, and 28 rams, and 49 sheep, and 7 lambs, and 21 kids of the goats, as a burnt offering on the altar sacrifice, well pleasing for a sweet savor before Yahuwah. This was his offering in consequence of the vow which he had vowed, that he would give a tenth with their fruit offerings and their drink offerings. And when the fire had consumed it, he burnt incense on the fire over the fire. So he's got a fire going. And for thank offering, 2 oxen and 4 rams and 4 sheep, 4 he-goats and 2 sheep of a year old, and 2 kids of the goats. And thus he did daily for 7 days. And he and all his sons and his men were eating this with joy there 7 days, and blessing and thanking Yahuwah, who had delivered him out of all his tribulation, and had given him his vow to be a priest. And he tied all the clean animals clean animals, made a burnt sacrifice. This is before Moses was given the law. Guess what? There's clean animals. But the unclean animals he gave not to Levi his son, and he gave him all the souls of men. And Levi discharged the priestly office at Bethel before Jacob his father in preference to his 10 brothers. And he was a priest there, and Jacob gave his vow. Thus he tithed again the tithe to Yahuwah and sanctified it, and it became holy unto him. And for this reason it is ordained on the heavenly tables as a law for the tithing again, the tithe to eat before Yahuwah from year to year, in the place where it is chosen that his name should dwell. And to this law there is no limit of days forever. This ordinance is written that it may be fulfilled from year to year, in eating the second tithe before Yahuwah in the place where it hath been chosen, and nothing shall remain over from it from this year to the year following. So this is about the tithe in the place that is chosen. For in its year shall the seed be eaten till the days of the gathering of the seed of the year, and the wine till the days of the wine, and the oil till the days of its season. And all that is left thereof, and becometh old, let it be regarded as polluted, let it be burnt with fire, for it is unclean. And thus let them eat it together in the sanctuary, and let them not suffer it to become old. And all the tithes of the oxen and sheep shall be holy unto Yahuwah, and shall belong to his priests, which they will eat before him from year to year. For thus it is ordained and engraven regarding the tithe on the heavenly tables. And the following night, on the 22nd day of this month, Jacob resolved to build that place and to surround the court with the wall. So this is the night on the 22nd, that's 7 days later. And to sanctify it and make it holy forever for himself and for his children after him. And Yahuwah appeared to him by night and blessed him and said unto him, Thy name shall not be called Jacob, but Israel shall thy name be. Shall they name thy name? And he said unto him again, I am Yahuwah who created heaven and earth. That's his dominion. As a king has a nation, he's the maker of heaven and earth. He's king over earth. This is his title, his land. I shall increase thee and multiply thee exceedingly. That's his seal. And kings will come forth from thee, and they will judge everywhere, wherever the foot of the sons of men hath trodden. And now I shall give to thy seed all the earth which is under heaven, and they will judge all the nations according to their desires. Matthew 19:28, Yahushua said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that you which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, you also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And after that they will get possession of the whole earth and inherit it forever. And he finished speaking with him, and he went up from him. And Jacob looked till he had descended into heaven. And he saw in a vision of the night, and behold, an angel descended from heaven with 7 tablets in his hands, and he gave them to Jacob, and he read them, and knew all that was written therein, which would befall him and his sons throughout all the ages. And he showed him all that was written on the tablets, and said unto him, Do not build this place, and do not make it an eternal sanctuary, and do not dwell there, for this is not the place. Go to the house of Abraham thy father, and dwell with Isaac thy father, until the day of the death of thy father. For in Egypt thou wilt die in peace, and in this land thou wilt be buried with honor in the sepulchre of thy fathers with Abraham and Isaac. Fear not, for as thou hast seen and read it, thus will it all be, and do thou write everything as thou hast seen and read. So guess what? Isaac's got a book. Where's that at? And Jacob said, Yahuwah, how can I remember all that I have read and seen? And he said unto him, I will bring all things to thy remembrance. Let's see. Where's it at? Holy Spirit, remembrance. Oh yeah, he took the bread and gave thanks. Do this in remembrance of me. He's keeping a feast. Yeah, here we go. John 14:26. But the Comforter, which is the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance, whatsoever I have said unto you. And you already see the prophets had the Holy Spirit. And Jacob, let's see. Hold on, that Jacob's got a book. There we go. Yeah, I think that was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, part of it. And Jacob said, he told Jacob, I will bring all things to thy remembrance, Holy Spirit. And he went up from him, and he awoke from his sleep, and he remembered everything which he had read and seen, and he wrote down all the words which he had read and seen, Jacob. And he celebrated there yet another day, and he sacrificed thereon according to all that he sacrificed on the former days, and called its name Addition, for this day was added, and the former days called the feast. So the 8th day is Addition. And thus it was manifested that it should be, and it is written on the heavenly tables, wherefore it was revealed to him that he should celebrate it, and add it to the 7 days of the feast. So the feast is only 7 days. The last day is Addition. And its name was called Addition because it was recorded amongst the days of the feast days. Well, that's according to the number of the days of the year. That's interesting. Okay, so it's included in the feast days. Gotcha. And the night on the 23rd of this month, Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died, and they buried her beneath the city under the oak of the river. And he called the name of this place the river of Deborah, and the oak of the morning of Deborah. And Rebekah went and returned to her house to his father Isaac, and Jacob sent by her hand rams and sheep and he goats, that she should prepare a meal for his father such as he desired. And he went after his mother till he came to the land of Carbaton, and he dwelt there. And Rachel bare a son in the night, and called his name Son of My Sorrow, for she suffered in giving him birth. And his father called his name Benjamin. On the 11th of the 8th month, in the first of the 6th week of this Jubilee. So that's where we get the 8th day of the feast. So I guess it's recorded within the days of the feast. So, yep. So the 8th day shall be a Sabbath. Let's see. Nehemiah chapter 8. In the 7th month arrived, the children of Israel were settled in their cities, and all the people were gathered as one man to the broad place before the water gate. Look, they're gathered as one man. And they told Esdras the scribe to bring the book of the law of Moses, which Yahuwah commanded Israel. So Esdras the priest brought the law before the congregation, both of men and women. So Esdras was a priest and a scribe. And everyone who had understanding was present to hearken on the first day of the 7th month. So that's the first day of the 7th month. He read from the time of the sunrise to the middle of the day. Day starts in the morning, not evening. If he was reading to evening. So let's go down. Daily knowledge, people. Okay, and where's it at? Okay, so they found written in the law which Yahuwah commanded Moses that the children of Israel should dwell in booths in the feast of in the 7th month, that they should sound with trumpets in all their cities and in Jerusalem. And Esdras said, Go forth to the mountain, and bring branches of olive, and branches of cypress trees, and branches of myrtle, and branches of palm trees, and branches of every thick tree, to make booths, according to that which was written. So I guess we're supposed to use these to make booths. And the people went forth and brought them, and made booths for themselves, each one upon his roof. and in their courts, and in the courts of the house of Yahuwah, and in the streets of the city, and as far as the gate of Ephraim. And all the congregation who had returned from the captivity made booths and dwelt in booths, for the children of Israel had not done so from the days of Yahusha, the son of Nun. They translate Jesus, but that's Joshua, until that day, and there was great joy. And Ezra read in the book of the law of Yahuwah daily, from the first day even to the last day. And they kept the feast 7 days, and on the 8th day a solemn assembly according to the ordinance. So they didn't do tabernacles from the days of Joshua until they returned from the captivity. Interesting. So let's see here. I got Nehemiah. Deuteronomy 31. And Moses charged them in that day, saying, after 7 years, in the time of the year of release, in the feast of tabernacles, when all Israel come together to appear before Yahuwah your Elohim, in the place which Yahuwah shall choose, you shall read this law before all Israel in their ears, having assembled the people, the men and the women and the children and the stranger that is in your cities. He's given instruction to Israel when they come into the land, in the place he chooses when they enter the land, the stranger that is in your cities, that they may hear and that they may learn to fear Yahuwah your Elohim, and they shall hearken to do all the words of this law, and their sons who have not known shall hear and shall learn to fear Yahuwah the Elohim all the days that they live upon the land into which you go over Jordan to inherit it. And also Deuteronomy 16, and thou shalt remember that thou wast a servant in the land of Egypt, and thou shalt observe and do these commands. Thou shalt keep for thyself the feast of tabernacles 7 days, when thou gatherest in thy produce from thy corn floor and thy winepress. And that's very interesting. There was a supermoon the other day that was supposedly the harvest moon. So this should coincide with the harvest. I'm not going to get way into the calendar because I think that kind of messed up my Feast of Trumpets video I did. The calendar is a big study. It's not something that can be just stuck in a video with something else. But this is the Feast of Tabernacles coincides with the harvest. Feast of Tabernacles, harvest. Now, a lot of people did the Jewish reckoning is like 2 weeks ago. But that super moon didn't occur during, it should be Feast of Harvest, you gather in, Feast of Tabernacles. And thou shalt rejoice in thy feast, thou and thy son and thy daughter, thy manservant and thy maidservant, and the Levite and the stranger and the orphan and the widow that is in thy cities. 7 days shalt thou keep a feast to Yahuwah thy Elohim in the place which Yahuwah thy Elohim shall choose for himself. Again, this is instructions to Israel entering the land. And if Yahuwah thy Elohim shall bless thee in all thy fruits and in every work of thy hands, then thou shalt rejoice. Abraham kept the Feast of Tabernacles before Israel entered the land. Was he in the place that he chose? He was wandering. So 3 times a year shall all thy males appear before Yahuwah the Elohim in the place which Yahuwah shall choose, in the feast of unleavened bread, in the feast of weeks, in the feast of tabernacles. Thou shalt not appear before Yahuwah thy Elohim empty, each one according to his ability, according to the blessing of Yahuwah thy Elohim which he has given thee. So we've got Hosea chapter 12. Ephraim has compassed me with falsehood, in the house of Israel, northern kingdom, and Judah, southern kingdom, with ungodliness. House of Israel was dispersed around 722 BC, Judah around 580 something BC. And Judah came back, house of Israel did not. But now Yahuwah knows them, and they shall be called Yahuwah's holy people. But Ephraim is an evil spirit. He has chased the east wind all the day. He has multiplied empty and vain things, and made a covenant with the Assyrians. Where were they taken? To Assyria. And oil has gone in the way of traffic into Egypt. And Yahuwah has a controversy with Judah in order to punish Jacob. According to his ways and according to his practices will he recompense him. He took his brother by the heel in the womb, and in his labors he had power with Yahuwah. And he prevailed with the angel and was strong. They wept and entreated me. They found me in the house of On, and there a word was spoken to them. But Yahuwah Almighty shall be his memorial. Thou therefore shalt return to thy Elohim, keep thou mercy and judgment, and draw nigh to thy Elohim continually. As for Canaan, in his hand is a balance of unrighteousness. He has loved to tyrannize, and Ephraim said, Nevertheless I am rich, I have found refreshment to myself. None of his labors shall be found available to him, by reason of the sins which he has committed. But I, Yahuwah thy Elohim, brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. I will yet cause thee to dwell in tabernacles, according to the days of the feast. This is after he brought him out of Egypt. Second Exodus, he's going to make them dwell in tabernacles again. And I will speak to the prophets, and I multiplied visions, and by the means of the prophets I was represented. If Gilad exists not, then the chiefs in Gilad, when they sacrificed, were false, and their altars were as heaps on the ground of the field. And Jacob retreated into the plain of Syria, and Israel served for a wife and waited for a wife. And Yahuwah brought Israel out of the land of Egypt by a prophet, and by a prophet was he preserved. Ephraim was angry and excited, therefore his blood shall be poured out upon him, and Yahuwah shall recompense to him his reproach. I will yet cause thee to dwell in tabernacles according to the days of the feast. Ezra chapter 3. And the 7th month came on, and the children of Israel were in their cities, and the people assembled as one man at Jerusalem. Then stood up Yahusha the son of Josedek, or Yeshua, and his brethren the priests, and Zerubbabel the son of Salathiel. I wonder, they translate Jesus there. Ezra 3. Jeshua, no J before 1500, so Yeshua. Let's see. So Ezra 3:2. Let's see here. Jeshua. H3442. Yeshua. Son of Nun, tribe of Ephraim, successor of Moses, son of Jehozadak, high priest after the restoration. Yeshua, not Jesus. They like to stick that in there. Alright, so let's see. Then stood up Yeshua, the son of Josedek, and his brethren the priests, and Zerubbabel, the son of Salathiel, and his brethren. They built the altar of Yahuwah of Israel to offer upon it whole burnt offerings, according to the things that were written in the law of Moses, the man of Yahuwah. And they set up the altar on its place, for there was a terror upon them because of the people of the lands. And the whole burnt offering was offered up upon it to Yahuwah morning and evening. And they kept the Feast of Tabernacles, according to that which was written, and offered whole burnt offerings daily, in number according to the ordinance, the exact daily rate. And after this, the perpetual whole burnt offering and offering for the season of the new month. I'm going to have to make some other videos. Ezra 3. I don't like getting into all that calendar controversy and day controversy, but people need to know the truth. Let's see. Yep, Ezra 3:5. Set feast, Moedim. Can't go by that because that's only the vowel points. It has nothing to do with the word. Let's see. Both of the new moons. New moon. It says first day of the month, lunar month, That's more like it. Lunar month. But that wouldn't be, if you look at Kodesh, you look at month, just month by itself. Ark rested in the 7th month on the mountain of Ararat. That's Hodesh. That's month. It's not moon. Month. And if you look up the word moon, just go to sun, the sun and the moon. It's very easy to look it up. The sun and the moon. The moon. Whole different word. It means moon. Moon and month. Two completely different words. So, for the season of the new month, and for all the hallowed feast of Yahuwah, and for every one that offered the freewill offerings to Yahuwah on the first day of the 7th month, they began to offer whole burnt offerings to Yahuwah, but the foundation of the house of Yahuwah was not laid. And they gave money to the stone hewers and carpenters, and meat and drink and oil to the Sidonians and Tyrians, to bring cedar trees from Lebanon to the sea of Joppa, according to the grant of Cyrus, king of the Persians, to them. So, let's see. Yep, so they're doing the Feast of Tabernacles there also. This is Zechariah 14. Behold, the days of Yahuwah come, thy spoils shall be divided in thee, and I will gather all the Gentiles to Jerusalem to war, and the city shall be taken, and the houses plundered, and the women ravished, and half of the city shall go forth into captivity, but the rest of the people shall not be utterly cut off from the city. And Yahuwah shall go forth and fight with those Gentiles, as when he fought in the day of war, and his feet shall stand in that day on the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave asunder. Has that happened yet? No. Half of it toward the east, and the west a very great division, and half the mountain shall lean to the north, and half of it to the south, and the valley of my mountains shall be closed up, and the valley of the mountains shall be joined on to Jasad, and shall be blocked up as it was blocked up in the days of the earthquake, in the days of Uzziah king of Judah. And Yahuwah my Elohim shall come, and all the saints with him. Jude 1:14, and also Enoch also the 7th from Adam prophesied of these, saying, Behold, Yahuwah cometh with 10,000s of his saints, to execute judgment upon all, and to convince all that are ungodly among them of all their ungodly deeds which they have ungodly committed, and of all their hard speeches which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. If you speak against his law, you're speaking against him. All the saints with him. My God shall come, and it shall come to pass in that day that there shall be no light. You'll see that through the scriptures. There shall be for one day cold and frost, and that day shall be known to Yahuwah. And it shall not be day nor night, but towards evening it shall be light. And in that day living water shall come forth out of Jerusalem, half of it toward the former sea, and half of it toward the latter sea. And so shall it be in summer and spring. And Yahuwah shall be king over all the earth. In that day there shall be one Lord, and his name one. Deuteronomy. Compassing all the earth, and the wilderness from Gabe unto Ramon, south of Jerusalem. And Ramah shall remain in its place, from the gate of Benjamin to the place of the first gate, to the gate of the corners, and to the tower of Anamil, as far as the king's wine presses. They shall dwell in the city, and there shall be no more any curse, and Jerusalem shall dwell securely. Has it happened yet? No, they're still fighting wars over there. And this shall be the overthrow with which Yahuwah will smite all the nations, as many as have fought against Jerusalem. And that land is going to be destroyed. And then New Jerusalem is going to come out. So, but he gathers the people, and they gather against Jerusalem, and then he executes judgment. So that may be what this is talking about. Their flesh shall consume away while they are standing upon their feet, and their eyes shall melt out of their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. That's because of the Messiah, the king's back, and his saints are with him. And there shall be in that day a great panic from Yahuwah upon them, and they shall lay hold every man of the hand of his neighbor, and his hand shall be clasped with the hand of his neighbor. Judah also shall fight in Jerusalem, and Yahuwah shall gather the strength of all the nations round about, gold and silver and apparel in great abundance, and this shall be the overthrow of the horses and mules and camels and asses and all the beasts that are in those camps, according to this overthrow. See that some of that in the war scroll. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall be left of all the nations that came against Jerusalem shall even come up every year to worship the King, Yahuwah Almighty, to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. So in the millennial reign, you're going to keep it, or you're not going to get. And it shall come to pass that whosoever of all the families of the earth shall not come up to Jerusalem to worship the King, Yahuwah Almighty, even these shall be added to the others. Added to which others? And if the family of Egypt shall not go up nor come, then upon them shall be the overthrow with which Yahuwah shall smite the nations. Whichever of them shall not come up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. In the Masoretic text it says that they'll get no rain, but this don't sound like no rain. This sounds worse than no rain. This shall be the sin of Egypt and the sin of all the nations, whosoever shall not come up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. In that day there shall be upon the bridle of every horse holiness to Yahuwah Almighty, and the cauldrons in the house of Yahuwah shall be as bowls before the altar, and every pot in Jerusalem and in Judah shall be holy to Yahuwah Almighty, and all that sacrifice shall come and take of them, and shall seethe meat in them. And in that day there shall be no more Canaanite in the house of Yahuwah Almighty. Wiped out. Alright, so Hebrews chapter 11. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good report. Through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of Yahuwah, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. By faith Abel offered unto Yahuwah a more excellent sacrifice than Cain. Why? Because he did it according to the law, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous, because he kept the law. Yahuwah testifying of his gifts, and by it being dead yet speaketh. By faith Enoch was translated, that he should not see death, and was not found, because Yahuwah had translated him. For before his translation he had this testimony, that he pleased Yahuwah. How did he please him? Read the book of Enoch. He kept the commandments, and he taught his children to keep the commandments. But without faith it is impossible to please him. If you don't have faith, you don't keep his commandments. For he that cometh to Yahuwah must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. By faith Noah, being warned of Yahuwah of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by which he condemned the world, and became heir of the righteousness which is by faith. Dead Sea Scrolls says he was a preacher of righteousness. How did he preach righteousness? By the law. By faith Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should have to receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out, not knowing whither he went. By faith he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles, what we see in Jubilees. Abraham dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he looked for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God, Yahuwah. That's New Jerusalem. And it continues on. I wanted to read it because of that right there. Dwelling in tabernacles. What do we read? Abraham dwelt in tabernacles. Psalm 42. Judge me, O Yahuwah, and plead my cause against an ungodly nation. Deliver me from the unjust and crafty man. For thou, O Yahuwah, art my strength. Wherefore hast thou cast me off? And why do I go sad of countenance while the enemy oppresses me? Send forth thy light and thy truth. They have led me and brought me to the holy mountain and to thy tabernacles. What's this holy mountain? New Jerusalem. I will go into the altar of Yahuwah, to Yahuwah who gladdens my youth. I will give thee thanks to thee on the harp, O Yahuwah, my Elohim. Wherefore art thou very sad, O my soul, and wherefore dost thou trouble me? Hope in Yahuwah, for I will give thanks to him, who is the health of my countenance and my Elohim. Yep. So you'll see in Hebrews that Moses saw the pattern of the things in heaven. That's how he made the altar and everything else. He made it according to the pattern in heaven. Psalm 43. So in the Masoretic text, 42 is 43 in modern Bibles, and 43 is 44. For the end, a psalm for instruction for the sons of Korah. O Yahuwah, we have heard with our ears, our fathers have told us the work which thou wroughtest in their days, in the days of old. Thine hand utterly destroyed the heathen, and thou didst plant them, thou didst afflict the nations and cast them out. For they inherited not the land by their own sword, and their own arm did not deliver them, but thy right hand and thine arm, and the light of thy countenance, because thou wert well pleased with them. Thou art indeed my King and my God, who commandest deliverances for Jacob. In thee will we push down our enemies, and in thy name will we bring to naught them that rise up against us. For I will not trust in my bow, and my sword shall not save me. For thou hast saved us from them that afflicted us, and hast put to shame them that hated us. In Yahuwah will we make our boast all the day, and to thy name will we give thanks forever. Pause. But now thou hast cast off and put us to shame, and thou wilt not go forth with our host. Thou hast turned us back before our enemies, and they that hated us spoiled for themselves. Thou madest us as sheep for meat, and thou scatteredst us among the nations. Israel was scattered among the nations. And Judah. Thou hast sold thy people without price, and there was no profit by their exchange. Thou hast made us a reproach to our neighbors, a scorn and a derision to them that are round about us. Thou hast made us a proverb among the Gentiles, a shaking of the head among the nations. All the day my shame is before me, and the confusion of my face has covered me, because of the voice of the slanderer and reviler, because of the enemy and avenger. All these things are come upon us, but we have not forgotten thee, neither have we dealt unrighteously in thy covenant. And our heart has not gone back, but thou hast turned aside our paths from thy way, for thou hast laid us low in a place of affliction. See, he did that. And the shadow of death has covered us. If we have forgotten the name of our God, yes, we did. Did we forget his name? Yep. And if we have spread out our hands to a strange God, shall not Yahuwah search these things out? For he knows the secrets of the heart. For thy sake we are killed all the day long. We are counted for sheep as sheep. We are counted as sheep for slaughter. Awake, wherefore sleepest thou, O Yahuwah? Arise, and do not cast us off forever. Wherefore turnest thou thy face away, and forgettest our poverty and our affliction? For our soul has been brought down to the dust, our belly has cleaved to the earth. Arise, O Yahuwah, help us and redeem us for thy name's sake. For his name's sake. Mark chapter 9, and Peter answered and said, Yahushua, Master, it is good for us to be here, and let us make 3 tabernacles, one for thee, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. That's when Moses and Elijah appeared to him. John chapter 12. So, let's see. On the next day, verse 12, much people that were come to the feast, when they heard that Yahushua was coming to Jerusalem, took branches of palm trees. What feast are they keeping? Tabernacles. And went forth to meet him and cried, Hosanna, blessed is King of Israel that cometh in the name of Yahuwah. And Yahushua, when he had found a young ass, sat thereon, as it is written, Fear not, daughter of Zion, behold, the king cometh, sitting on an ass's colt. These things understood not his disciples at the first. Could you imagine being there? Seeing all that and not understanding what's going on. That'd be me. But when Yahushua was glorified, then remembered they that these things were written of him, and that they had done these things unto him. The people therefore that was with him, when he called Lazarus out of his grave and raised him from the dead, bear record. For this cause the people also met him, for that they had heard that he had done this miracle. The Pharisees therefore said among themselves, Perceive ye how ye prevail nothing? Behold, the world is gone after him. And there were certain Greeks among them that came up to worship at the feast. Oh, look at there. The same came therefore to Philip, which was of Bethsaida of Galilee, and desired him, saying, Sir, we would see Yahushua. Philip cometh and telleth Andrew, and again Andrew and Philip telleth Yahushua. And Yahushua answered them, saying, The hour is come that the Son of Man should be glorified. Verily, verily, I say unto you, except a corn of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone. But if it dieth, it bringeth forth much fruit. Die to yourselves. He that loveth his life shall lose it, and he that hateth his life in this world shall keep it unto life eternal. Alright, so I think that's pretty much it as far as the stuff I wanted to share. Happy Sabbath, Ken. Almost as if we were not to do it in captivity. 30 minutes in. There's plenty of instances where they're keeping the feast in the Acts and all that stuff. So let's see. He said that the hour comes. Will not worship. If you read the Samaritan Torah, they think that Mount Gerizim is the place of worship. And you read the Jewish, it says Jerusalem. Well, the Dead Sea Scrolls agrees with what we have in the Masoretic, that Jerusalem is the place of worship. But the Messiah, when he came and died, John 4:23, but the hour cometh, see, he's prophesying of his death, and now is when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. That is right after the woman is talking about, well, here it is, 21. Yahushua saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when you shall neither in this mountain nor at Jerusalem worship the Father. That's the feasts. So you're not going to be going to Jerusalem for the feast. He knew that when he died, Jerusalem was going to get destroyed, and the southern kingdom was going to be dispersed into the Gentiles. If the Jerusalem's destroyed and you're dispersed into the Gentiles, you can't come to Jerusalem. Prior to his death, he was not our Passover sacrifice yet. The Passover was a foreshadow of his sacrifice. But after his death, he's our Passover, so we don't have to sacrifice anything. We don't have to go to Jerusalem to keep the feast. And plenty of times in the book of Acts, they're keeping the feast. So it's not when the fast was passed. Acts 27:9. Now when much time was spent, when selling was now dangerous, because the fast was now already past, Paul admonished them. What fast is he talking about? He's talking about the Day of Atonement. Was he in Jerusalem? No. First Corinthians 5:7. Purge out therefore the old leaven, that you may be a new lump, as you are unleavened, for even Messiah our Passover is sacrificed for us. Does that mean you don't keep the unleavened bread? No. It means there's a spiritual meaning behind the law, that you're supposed to purge out the leaven spiritually, not just do unleavened bread. And also, it is see 1 Corinthians 5:8. Therefore let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. Acts 20, chapter 20, verse 6, and we sailed away from Philippi after the days of unleavened bread. So what were they doing in Philippi? They were keeping unleavened bread, or it would not be mentioned here. And came unto them to Troas in 5 days, where we abode 7 days. The times that Paul goes back to Jerusalem for the feast, that's when Jerusalem is still standing. And I think it's 1 Corinthians 15. You'll see it over and over and over. If they're keeping one feast outside the land. 15. You'll see it over and over and over again. Where's it at? Maybe it's 6. Yes, I think it's 16. It's a lot of scriptures. Praise Yah, I can remember some of this. Let's see. Okay, so here in 1 Corinthians 16:8, but I will tarry at Ephesus until Pentecost. Why is he tarrying at Ephesus until Pentecost? He's keeping Pentecost. Plain and simple. All right. I hope that was a blessing and helpful to y'all. And happy Sabbath again.